today's video, we're going to be taking a look at this modeled guidance where there is still multiple East Coast snowstorms to track, especially the further north up that coast you go, of course. We're going to be talking about both of those storms among other things because there still is some severe weather concerns as well. We are at an interesting point in the year where we're kind of halfway between winter and spring, where there is some severe weather to speak of, but also that snowstorms activity as well. I mean, it's very, very interesting this time of year. Usually it's a lot quieter than this, actually. I've noted this is kind of some of the most quiet times of the year is around now and then also near November. But like I said, I mean, right now we're dealing with some of the most activity that we've had all year so far. So very, very interesting stuff, guys. We have a slight risk today. We have a marginal risk tomorrow. So definitely some activity upcoming in the severe weather department as well. Let's just move through with this. And as we can see, we get this trough activity here in the east, something like this shaping up just like that. And then we have this activity trying to meet up with that jet stream. There is some snowfall showers up here to the north of that jet stream as well. Very, very interesting. As we continue this on, we can see that that storm rapidly intensifies here off the east coast, as you can see, and becomes a bit of a nor'easter. Snowfall developing here across a lot of the mid-Atlantic and the northeast. Very, very interesting stuff. And as we can see, we also have storm number 2 basically developing here offshore of the west, or onshore of the west at this point, with some snowfall developing there. That's by Wednesday into Thursday. And as we continue this on, we get this big storm across the central United States, 999 here. Cold front there, warm front right here. And this definitely has some potential to basically create a very intense, severe weather event there. So we definitely need to watch this very, very closely. And we can tell that there is some snowfall here on the northern portion of this storm. So for a lot of the plains here, the upper Midwest, these are areas that need to be watched for that snowfall with this system. As we can see, it drops all the way to a 990 or 980? I think it's 990 millibar low pressure center. And it is a very strong storm. We can tell the jet stream is being directly influenced by this system, doing this very strong S curve. And we've talked about that S before. So when you see this S developing, that's usually a sign that this is a very impactful storm system there at the very top curve of the S, as you can see. And this is developing a very intense kind of northern movement here from the south in the eastern United States, bringing these thunderstorms and probably very warm and humid conditions by this weekend. That is going to be short-lived, however, because we do see that this trough does eventually beat out the ridge that is trying to develop in the east and brings us a little bit of a split jet look in the west. So we see something like this, but we also see a southern jet, it appears, moving in with this. So they combine here, and this could bring potential for, again, another mid-Atlantic or northeast snowstorm here. So we'll be watching for that. All sorts of activity out west due to all of this. As we just continue this on, we can see that a storm is developing here Tuesday, Wednesday timeframe across the south central United States. So we're seeing a lot of snowfall in these areas, rainfall as well for some folks. It's definitely a very, very interesting setup. Now, as we take a look at that total precipitation, we can tell that there is plenty of it for the western United States here. So for a lot of areas in the southwest, the northwest, seeing that activity. Again, once we move over the Rockies and the plains, we get a little bit less of that precipitation. Although I will say the Four Corner states are getting quite a bit. We do see that a lot of this redevelops over the south central United States and then eventually moves off the coast here of the east and basically moves onshore to the northeast and then back offshore. So we're seeing a lot of movement there. There is one of those storms, again, that does something like this, moves straight up into the upper Midwest, Great Lakes, and this is definitely going to bring impacts to those folks as well. Definitely a very, very interesting storm track as well. The total snowfall here tells the full story. We can see that the northeast and mid-Atlantic is still expecting quite a bit. And then also we see that the upper Midwest and the Great Lakes there, as well as the northern plains, expect quite a bit there from that storm that moves, again, pretty much straight up to these regions. And then we can see that regions throughout the mountainous west here, the Rockies, all of these areas are seeing significant snowfall here. And this has been the story all wintertime long and now all springtime long thus far. Definitely, again, a very, very interesting setup that we've had consistently in these areas. As we take a look at this GFS model, we can see we basically get the same thing. A very strong snowstorm here in these regions. So heavy snowfall there throughout New York, Massachusetts, Connecticut, Vermont, New Hampshire. And then we can see this next storm moving in for the west. That one moves down and then up through the central United States, again as a very strong low, bringing this strong cold front, warm front look. This would just, again, be a really intense setup for severe weather in between there later this week, so we'd be watching for that. We can again see that the jet stream is doing that S-curve look here, a little bit of a different kind of tilt to that, but same idea. Here is what we saw in that European model, so definitely we're getting some agreement there. And then we get this next storm developing through the south. Look at that, another nor'easter as that cold air is around trying to develop. This model is kind of introducing the idea of very far deep south snowfall. Take this with a grain of salt. I mean, by March 22nd, climate wise, we're very late in the season for any sort of snow or cold like this. And this is the GFS model, which has a track record of, in the long range, especially after hours 240, we're right about at it right here, doing very strange things. So we're going to want to just note that as we continue this, but it develops into a very strong nor'easter, 994 here off the East Coast. Pretty exclusive where it brings snowfall to. This gives me 2010 vibes, the Boxing Day blizzard, just because it's so exclusive for a lot of these very far east regions. And then that eventually comes to an end, and it does give way to some nicer springtime weather actually. Here, as you can see, I mean, we get a massive ridge here in the east, and then we return to this trough-like activity out west. This would definitely give a very, very nice springtime pattern, probably widespread 70s and 80s. And I'm actually going to refresh this because I think we're going to get more hours here. So we see that eventually gives way to what looks like a trough developing again for the central and eastern United States, with some ridging going on both coasts there. But mostly we're seeing a pretty far spread out trough. I think what would happen likely is this would bring pretty seasonable weather because this trough is pretty soft, but it is impacting a lot of folks. There's plenty of ridging going on both coasts. I think the coldest areas would be in the middle, and probably the warmest would be on the two coasts there. Still, regardless, a very, very interesting setup, to say the least. I think that this would be just very, very interesting in many different ways. Now, as we take a look at this European ensemble model, when we continue this on, we see the cold air moving into the eastern United States, followed by a warm-up again for the weekend. So Saturday, things are looking very nice. Friday into Saturday. Friday during the day, going to be quite warm. Saturday, you're cooling down through the day to near seasonable for the east, but we follow that up with extreme cold for most of that week, and it does appear like that cold wants to back away back to the west overall on most of these ensemble members, because we see the heart of the cold located somewhere in here. Definitely a very, very interesting look that needs to be kind of noted here, that we do see the GFS model calling for the cold returning back west and then warm returning to the east. Now this European ensemble model is backing away with the cold back to the west and maybe showing more warmth in the east here over time. If you've been checking in with us daily, you will note that probably about a month ago, when we were in mid to late February, this is how we first saw that there was going to be potential cold in March in the east. Was this European model basically did the opposite of this. It looked an awful lot like this, where, you know, in the long range we would see signs that a lot of that green would be headed eastward. There was a little bit less out here when we were taking a look at that time frame, but that is the beginning signs of this ensemble model starting to kind of have turning tides as far as what to expect. And I think this is a good sign that we're going to be heading towards more spring-like weather for the end of March into the beginning of April, but obviously only time will tell. So be sure to tune in with us daily. We do upload every single day. Also, you can hit the bell icon for daily notifications when we do upload. Also, like the video if you did enjoy it, leave a comment down below, and I'll see you guys in the next video.